right now we're on our final session for the day, which is an international fireside chat on cloud security architecture privacy in multi-tenancy clouds. Well, we're joined by our eminent speakers. First up, Juan Kangruvan, the head of data analytics, Jakarta Smart City, Indonesia. Well, Juan is the current head of the data analytics at the Jakarta Smart City. His key role is to fully utilize data to formulate public policy and to improve quality of public services. Juan is currently working on several city-scale strategic analytic initiatives, and he's actively analyzing complex, diverse, and exciting urban data on a daily basis. Well, on the other side, we're joined by Vijay Bharti, the Chief Information Security Officer and Senior Vice President of Cybersecurity Practice, Happiest Minds Technologies India. Well, Vijay, being the Chief Information Security Officer and the Senior Vice President of the Cyber Security Practice at the Happiest Mind Technologies, brings in more than 20 years of experience in the area of IT security across multiple domains like identity and access management, data security, cloud security, and infrastructure security. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with this, it is my honor to welcome both our eminent speakers on the stage and screen. Thank you, Juan, and thank you, Vijay, for joining us at the World Cloud Show. We really value and appreciate your time and your guidance forth. Over to you. Vijay, I believe you're on mute. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. Bhavna, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
All right. So, data privacy, very interesting topic. I think need for the hour. We have been seeing a lot of focus on privacy, and rightly so, given the number of breaches happening across the globe. And due to that, I think a lot of governments have to step in, a lot of regulatory requirements. Though they were there for many years, for example, EU directive of 1995, but they are much more stringent avatar of GDPR. Similarly, the entire states in US, California rolled out California Consumer Privacy Act, and all the other 50 states are trying to follow. In Middle East, yes, UAE, I think their Data Protection Act of number 2 of 2019, then 2020. Similarly, Qatar also has a Data Protection Act in place. And because a lot of business anyway happens with the EU, right? So they have to mandate to a lot of GDPR requirements as well. So privacy in that sense is very, very critical. Now again, fundamentally, you cannot have privacy unless you have security, right? So no security means no privacy. So here we are looking at in terms of how do you completely safeguard your data, whether be it on cloud, be it on environment, on-prem environment. To my knowledge, organizations are still challenged to address all the privacy aspects, even on on-premise data centers, right? Managing clouds and that to multi-tenant cloud is a separate challenge altogether. But again, it's not something which is not doable. There are ways and mechanisms which are available to really ensure that how do you secure and safeguard privacy. But for it to be effectively happen, privacy has to be looked in right from the design stage. Privacy would be very difficult to bolt on top, right? Because a lot of your design decisions will get determined by the way you want to make that information more secure and keep it private. So that's where some of these privacy by design principles, which kind of evolved over the years. I mean, no rocket science again there. Be proactive about privacy. Thinking of it as an afterthought is really going to be difficult. Ensure privacy by default. If you don't want data, don't collect it. Data minimization is the golden rule of maintaining privacy. Embedding privacy into design, right? I mean, if you have a database where you want to store PI information, better obfuscate it by default itself, right? Instead of again thinking about obfuscation at a later stage. Similarly, very critical, I mean, privacy, again, as I said, right? End-to-end security is must-have for privacy. A lot of transparency and visibility. Privacy is a lot about trust. So you have to give that enough confidence to your consumers that there is trust in the system, right? And that's where if you look at the global leading cloud players, including Microsoft or AWS or Google, right? the kind of energy, the kind of money which they are spending on getting their solutions attested by third parties, right? If you go to the privacy page of Azure or AWS, right, you may find 50 countries and all the various privacy laws which they abide by. And they have to do that, right? Because unless they create the trust in the system, the adoption of cloud will really become a challenge. Again, as I said, right, I mean, it's given the technology choices today, it is something which can be addressed, but again, will primarily depend on the business case, will depend upon kind of system which you're building up. Like we understand, if, for example, if you take infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, although by nature they are multi-tenant, because that's the whole value a cloud provider is giving you, right? By sharing those resources, bringing the cost optimization. But then that also brings in certain challenges, right? From a security and privacy perspective. How a multi-tenant environment is really be able to address the logical segregation of security and controls, because the platform and the resources are going to be common, right? Similarly, how about a malicious tenant or ignorant tenant, right? By virtue of some malicious actions, all the other tenants also can get affected. Similarly, performance, right? I mean, if you are in a multi-tenant environment, one of the tenant consumes all the resources, can have a direct impact on the other tenant. Unauthorized, uncoordinated changes, right? I mean, you're trying to update those systems and for one tenant and applying a different policies and configuration on one tenant, which can affect configurations for other tenants as well, right? So there are challenges with multi-tenants environment. But as I was saying, right, I mean, quite a lot of it is in your control based on the nature of business, nature of application and system you are putting in place. For example, infrastructure as a service, you can do a lot of things, right? I mean, for example, if you do not want to, you want to create a zero trust architecture, right, which is a very common theme which is now getting picked up by enterprise, that don't trust on anything, adopt a zero trust architecture for everything. Assume you want to do data encryption, right? So there are ways and mechanisms in which you can bring in your own encryption. You can do your own private key management. You can extend your enterprise key management services to the cloud. You don't necessarily need to use the key management or key vaults of the cloud providers. Although I'm pretty sure that those key vaults provided by cloud providers are 100% safe. There are no ways in which some of those encryptions can be broken, even if you look at the employees of the providers themselves. But still, there are ways of bringing in your own encryption, bringing in your own obfuscation, bringing in your own strong access control, right? I mean, you can also define very stringent access control mechanisms with multi-factor tools enabled, and again, try to implement a privileged identity management solutions, right? So technologically, there are ways and mechanisms, but as I said, right, I mean, it's very, very important to start thinking about it right from the design stage itself. I definitely have seen cases. Cloud, of course, is a lot of people talk about cloud, right? I mean, the kind of security and privacy challenges. But let's also look at the other thing, the kind of money, resources, investments which cloud providers have, and the kind of focus which they are trying to put in security, privacy. I don't believe a normal organization can spend so much effort and resources to try to create that level of security. So again, very, very important to look at your own business case, your own privacy requirements. If you are very strongly believe that this is a very, very critical information, and there's no potential to be able to take any kind of a risk in that environment, right? I mean, there may not be many choices, but to stay away from multi-tenant cloud or trying to have a small private cloud within the environment, which can be extended or in a hybrid cloud kind of a model, where some of the workloads can be in the cloud and some of the workloads which directly interface with the sensitive information can be on-prem. So there are different ways and architectures to be able to achieve it. But again, very, very important, this all needs to have a very, very close assessment right from the design stage in terms of your creating those data flow diagrams, understanding where the data goes with respect to the overall data lifecycle, identifying various risks involved at each level, right, in terms of where the data resides, doing the complete data risk and impact assessments, and then set up a governance mechanism, right, which on an ongoing basis you can find out the sensitive data, you can really map it to the policies you have defined, and be able to really address it from the data generation to the data retention and data destruction. So today's environment technologically possible unless you're completely going to a very SaaS kind of application where you have no control at all. But in most of the other architectures and multi-tenant environments, it can be achieved to some level. But again, my biggest consideration is if you start thinking about it right from the initial days, trying to force fit it, trying to bolt it on would become very challenging.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vijay. What an interesting insight it was right there. Juan, I'd just like your insights as well on the cloud security architecture when we're talking about the privacy in multi-tenancy clouds. Could you give us your insights as well, Juan, before I leave into further discussions between you and Vijay? Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Bhuvana. Just to double check, how many minutes did I have for my intro speech?
Whatever you feel.
Okay, sure. Let me give a short 2 to 3 minutes introduction. So I think I'm more open with more questions and discussions later. So as I mentioned, as has been introduced, I'm the current head of data analytics of Jakarta Smart City, and it is also my pleasure to be here to be re-invited by Presscon. I think I've been here for quite several times, so I'm happy to be here and share my perspective. For today is the topic about cloud architecture, security, and privacy. So allow me to start with a more high-level and strategic context in the Jakarta or Indonesia government and also in the ASEAN region. I think the adoption of cloud is increasing more and more. I think one of the key reasons for that is the scalability and then the flexibility in terms of choosing the available features, the available options, and so on. So I think those are the key areas that I can observe. Later on, I can share a bit more about what has been happening in Jakarta Smart City. But on top of that, at the same time, we are also still thinking in terms of the policy context, especially in the public sector. So I think the debate whether the adoption of cloud is the first priority or the first option is still ongoing. I think now we are already in the slightly deeper level in the sense that we try to categorize which data, which area, which applications that can be stored or can be managed by cloud. And when we talk about cloud, it means the cloud, I mean the data center is physically located as Indonesia or can be overseas and so on and so forth. So there is ongoing technology and policy framework that I think that can expedite the utilization and then the adoption of cloud, especially in the Indonesia and also Jakarta. And for Jakarta Smart City, our role is quite straightforward, which is to use innovation and technology to drive the concrete impact to the society. So I think it's highly aligned with the strategic policies of our governor teams and other agencies in Jakarta. So by having this spirit, I think sooner or later we will use cloud because of the flexibility and scalability that I mentioned. I can give you 2 concrete examples. The first one is about, let's say, data analytics. When we work together with quite a number of agencies, parties, let's say in the specific context of COVID-19 impact mitigation and also the post-recovery. I think the cloud solution, I think is one of the key aspects whereby we can utilize quite a number of modeling, risk assessment, and so on that can help us in enhancing our analysis. But for sure, there will be the trade-off about especially, let's say, the patient's information, their health condition, and so on. So I think there is ongoing so-called needs to balance between the speed, the depth of analysis, and also how we can ensure the security and the privacy of the data that we collect. So that's the first one. And the second example is we are building the so-called super apps or one-stop service. We call it Jakarta Kini, which is the latest or the trend Jakarta, whereby we try to integrate the key services across hundreds of 200, 300 agencies in Jakarta. So for the citizens, they don't need to download quite a number of applications, access many websites, and so on. So by using this one-stop service, you can get a lot of services. And I think the best option in terms of the technology or the architecture framework should be using the cloud so-called direction. I think in short days, the context that I can share with you as a closure, I think we are trying to align in terms of our security, privacy, contact, in terms of the policy, standard architecture, let's say by ISO framework and so on. But I think it's not a short-term work. It's not a short-term efforts. I think in the next 2 to 5 years, we need to work on it. But I believe there will be more and more concrete and exciting and impactful use cases that we can develop by leveraging the cloud architecture and the cloud solutions. I think that's my intro. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Juan. I'd now leave the floor open to Vijay to have a conversation with you. He's got his first question ready, Juan, for you. So Vijay, I'd leave the floor open to you to take it forth now. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Juan. So Juan, so given that it's a smart city, large project by nature, what's the various types of data you are collecting, right? And then when it comes to policies in terms of classification, in terms of storage, in terms of access, right? I mean, how did you go about defining those different policies to different categorizations of those data?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's highly relevant and practical. Let me start with what kind of data that we have, and then the second one is how we handle or manage that. So for this first one, as a city, I think naturally we gather, we ingest, we store, and we analyze the really diverse data. For example, like the citizens' response, or citizen aspiration. We also manage the traffic conditions, CCTV, and also like the flood situation, river bank, also the food prices, and so on. And so in the health contact for the COVID-19 situation, all the vaccination, the scheduling, and also the citizen demographic data, I think we handle those data. And moving forward, there will be transactionals as well, because we are also building our super apps, whereby our citizens and our partners, industry partners, and so on can use our apps, let's say, for transactional services. Let's say the simplest use case is about the social aid, let's say, distribution. So we can use our super apps to handle that. So I think these are some of the key areas. And secondly, managing that is not straightforward. I think we, as a government bodies, we try to be conservative in this area. So we are not like the startup or the business that we are try to do it as fast as possible, but we try to really mitigate, and we really try to understand the risks. So some of the possible policies and the way we manage it, for example, some until now there are quite a number of data that we are still storing on this because of a very simple reason. It's very sensitive, and I think it's not that straightforward to define a clear policy for the cloud adoption for this kind of data. But again, there are some data that is available and it's totally open for public. We have our open data portal, and we can share several data sets to the public as well. So for this kind of collaboration, I think cloud is the most reasonable option, whereby we can also work together, let's say with the industry, with the universities, other government agencies, to share and to combine the data, and then to do the research together, policy, recommendation, and so on. And also we are building the big API based on this. I think related to the API, I think personally, I see that the most ideal way is to use a cloud-based solution to manage the API, especially the API that can handle a really huge amount of data or the specific security requirement. I think those are some of the remarks about what kind of data that we have in the terms of smart city, and then the way we manage and analyze it for the time being.
Sure, thanks. Sure. And then, can you give us some sense of the kind of infrastructure? I mean, are you using public cloud? You're on private cloud. You're building everything on-prem. Are these systems involving multi-tenancy, or this is completely a single tenant?
Okay, sure, understand. Thanks for the question. I think I will talk specifically in my unit, which is a smart city, and also the agency of InfoCom, whereby I have more closer contacts with that. On top of that, I know there are other agencies in Jakarta, and also in national level, in national ministries, who are also trying to have this kind of architectural point of view for cloud-based solution. I think for us, I think in the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years, we are still using a lot of on-premise processes, let's say for our data ingestion, our data lake, data warehouse, visualization, and so on. I think that was the situation last time, I think because of the policy framework as well. But for now, I think we are moving towards hybrid cloud. And I think now we are thinking how we can communicate or where there will be a more robust integration with quite a number of system databases, application, and so on. So now I talk about the institution or the unit of the smart city and also the agency of Infocom. So our agency of Infocom also in charge of building databases, network, and so on with other 200, 300 agencies. So by having this, I think so far we are already categorizing what kind of applications that can be safe enough to be hosted or to be managed in the cloud. And as a government, I think we are quite objective or quite neutral in terms of the cloud provider that we mentioned some names. I think we have been talking, let's say, to people like Google, AWS, to Microsoft, even people like Alibaba, even some of the cloud local players as well. We have been talking to them. So I think now the critical portion is to really align our high-level technology strategy, because we know that managing hybrid providers can be complex, and from the cost perspective can be a bit higher. So I think on that area we need to step back and to reassess. At least from what I can see, I think 2 or 3 key players will be the reasonable proportion. But again, on top of that, we are trying to build our digital ecosystem as well in Indonesia and Jakarta. So there are some local cloud players that we are trying to engage and to adopt as well. So I think this is the context in terms of the adoption of cloud, and in terms of the architecture. I think one of the key challenges in the public sector context is there is no really clear high-level guideline about the architectural overview, because some of the agencies, they may have their own authority, so they have their own way to design, to build the architecture, and so on. So I think if you ask me right now, the keyword is about integration. Sooner or later, I think we need to think to a really big architecture view, let's say with the national level, with the other agencies, with the industry, and so on. But I think I'll try to be pragmatic. I think for now, we try to prioritize our use cases, and based on that, we design with a certain maturity, with a certain security standard and level. And if the use cases are successful, I think we can scale this up and we can have a higher in the broader level of future of architecture. I think that's my comments to your question.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting days ahead for you, John. I mean, doing this kind of project is not easy, right? I mean, I remember we helped one of the organizations, which is a pretty large organization, right, define the whole cloud security and privacy framework. So they were also primarily on-prem, right? And then the moment they wanted to go to cloud, because they are a global organization, right? So a huge number of privacy regulatory requirements, a lot of number of integration challenges. Now, what we thought was, because it was the initial stage, right? It's very important to define certain principles so that each and every organization, each and every business unit within the organization stick to those principles, right? And we try to keep it simple, right, in terms of how they can identify the sensitivity of a system based on certain parameters, right, based on given the type of data which is handled, the type of exposure or interactions the system may have. And based on then sensitivity, we help them identify and define the level of security and privacy controls which they should implement when they are getting into these hybrid cloud or trying to adopt public cloud for that matter, right?
Yeah, add a bit. Sorry, have you finished? I can add 1 or 2 more points from there. Yeah, sure. Okay. Let me to add. Yeah, thanks for the comment. I think now I remember 1 or 2 points that can be relevant. I think if I can share my lessons learned, because sometimes I also advising other government agencies in ASEAN countries how to use this kind of innovation, cloud solutions, and so on. I think 1 key point that I can highlight that will not be working if you want to define really clearly in terms of the top-down approach, and then about your clear architecture and your clear execution from the beginning. I think it is not the on-the-ground situation in the public sector, especially in ASEAN countries. Maybe some countries can be exceptional, for example, like Singapore, but I think in general, that's not the approach, because I think in the government sector, the authority and then the bureaucracy, the processes, the governance can be slightly more complex in comparison with industry. And then that's why the second point I want to highlight. I think finding a really good case study, finding a really good use cases whereby it's not that really sensitive and the risk is not really that high. And then from there we adopt the cloud model and then the cloud architecture, and from there we scale up accordingly. I think based on my past few years experience because of Smart City and also talking to other government agencies in ASEAN and Asia countries, I think this approach will be more sensible, more feasible, and I think the result can be fairly clear as well. I think there's some of the lessons learned that I can share as well.
No, absolutely, John. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, that's how typically this has to start, right? I mean, you can look at some low-hanging fruit, low-risk use cases, right? I mean, experience it, see how things are working before you start attempting the complex ones. Yeah, thanks very much. Bhavna, how are we doing on time? Do we have more time? It's a very interesting discussion, can take a longer time.
Absolutely, Vijay. We definitely have exceeded slightly on the time, but Vijay, definitely, we are getting some really good response from the audience as well with regards to this session. So, Vijay, if you have any final question, we'd be more than happy to take that forth. If you have any final question directed to Juan.
So, yeah, so Juan touched upon that. I mean, I just wanted, again, if you want to add anything, right? I mean, a lot of organizations are still sitting on fence. Right, a lot of cloud adoption has already happened. Clouds are growing at 15-20% per annum, and of course, we definitely see a lot of capability and increase in the kind of security and privacy and compliance which they can offer. But again, as Yuan was looking at, right, in terms of and specifically in those environments where there's a lot of sensitive data involved, with a lot of regulatory restrictions there, right? What he would suggest is the best way to start moving forward, right? I mean, for example, one way we talked about taking a top-down approach, right, where you can try defining our overall framework. The other way can be take a approach where you can start identifying use cases which are less complex in nature, which has low risk, right? And both have its pros and cons, right? But in practical reality, as John suggested, and if he wants to add on anything on top of that in terms of his recommendation.
Okay, if I may have final remarks here on that part here, I think for sure, I don't think the cloud would be the next steps forward. I think, especially representing government bodies, I think analyzing concrete and comprehensive citizens' data, I think it's highly critical because it can give direct benefits to the citizen, as simple as the social aid distribution or the policy recommendation that you want to formulate. I think, especially in this COVID-19 context. At the same time, citizen data is also highly sensitive, especially when you already play around with the transactional areas. I think sooner or later, you will realize that you may want to move fast. At the same time, you want to manage your risks in the reasonable way. And that's why I think considering all the policy framework and then the use cases and then where to start, the phases and so on will be highly critical. And I believe from PJ, you already mentioned some of the key approaches, strategy, and then some of the lessons learned as well. I think that's the final remarks that I can share. Hopefully it can give good learning points and also lessons to all our audience. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Vijay, any final thoughts from your side as well, if you'd like to tell the audience?
No, as I said, Bhavna, I mean, cloud, there has been a lot of progress. There are a lot of ways and means to achieve a lot of security and compliance requirements today, right? But some of them are architectural decisions, right? In terms of if you want to split data across on-prem and cloud, you have to think about performance. If you have to think about creating a zero trust architecture, you have to see how will you create your key management, your privileged identity management, your access governance. If you have to really understand what's happening to your data, you have to have technologies and systems in place which can scan your entire environments, including cloud provider environments, to be able to find out the spread and location of that data, right? So technologies options, architectural options exist, unless, and again, it's really a business call, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's ROI for all of us, right? If it makes sense, if the risk can be contained, regulations can be addressed, and at the same time you get a lot of efficiency by adopting multi-tenant clouds. I think that's doable today, and I would definitely recommend organizations who are still sitting on the border to really set up a small team which can do some study, come out with the approach note, and take it from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vijay, on that. And thank you so much, Juan, for joining us. What an incredible international, fireside chat this was towards the end. We couldn't have asked for a better conclusion. So once again, a big thank you to Vijay and Juan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Bhavana.
Take care. Bye-bye.